We have at least 42% of our own ASCENT cohort, which are family managed businesses. And this particular topic, which says, does your family business need a war room, is a very interesting topic. And our speaker for this session is Mr. Tatwamasi Dixit, founder and mentor, Fabric. Good evening, Dixit ji.
Good evening. Thank
you so much for joining us today. I did give a brief introduction about you to the attendees today. If you would also please talk a little bit about your own journey and introduce yourself, that would be really helpful to the attendees.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank ASCENT Foundation for asking me to share my thoughts in the area of family business. And I have been working in the family business field for more than 22 plus years and have worked across 150 plus families, understanding their deep dimensions of how families work in business, what are their core dynamics, how do they pass the business from generation to generation. So maybe I would like to just set some context. Many of the audience may be from family business houses, either from first gen, second gen, or third gen, whichever generations they are in. It would be a good idea to get some broad view. I divide the business in the world in two parts. It's a non-family business. Many of in many countries, either businesses are developed by one member or a group of people, and then it just gets passed down to the next generation as they go from generation to generation. And in some families, they don't want to make it as a family business, and it gets sold out or it gets completely professionalized. And the other types of businesses you see is government-owned businesses. So these are all the two kinds of businesses in the world. Predominantly, if we look at India, I would say approximately 90% plus businesses are family-owned, family-managed businesses in India. In USA, it accounts for up to 74 to 75%. In Europe and UK, it's actually increases more, 78, 80 sometime. In certain specific European countries, China is no behind. But the idea here is, there is a tagline about family business which says that it's a generation to generation story. Essentially, shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. So the first generation essentially starts the business by rolling up their shirt sleeve, and the second generation enjoys the fruits of the family business. And if they don't manage it, then the third generation slips into, again, they have to roll up their shirt sleeves to run the business. And again, there are very, very few businesses. The statistics shows that only few percentage of the businesses go from first generation to third generation. And there are many, many reasons why it happens. If we look at India, historically, India has been, I would say, an oldest country where family businesses have been very, very prevalent, right from for so many thousands of years. If we notice the cultural framework of India, it's ingrained through a varnashrama dharma system, where whatever your father has been doing, you continue to do the same profession. And it was genetically embedded in their psyche. And so it was very, very easy for them. If the father was carpenter, son also used to join a carpentry. So this has been, if a father is a teacher, son also becomes a teacher. If the father is in business, son also gets into the business. This has been the culture and nature of the social system in India. And if we find the way before the independence, the way family businesses were managing in India, it was restricted in the hands of few families who had an access to the licenses. It was a license Raj period. But I see post the ending of license Raj and liberalization, there have been a huge growth in family businesses from many, many different parts of the world. Essentially, where literally there's a huge mushrooming effect there has been in India. And second generation, many businesses where they have come into the second generation, there's often a question, how do you define a family business? what is a family business is all about. They say that families who own or manage a business is one definition. Another dimension to look at is that a business which is influenced or controlled by family or family relationships. Another aspects to look at a family business is that more than two or three people who are working actively in the business, it's a family business where it brings in a very, very unique dimension of an interplay of three special circles. We call it's only prevalent in family business of an ownership circle, a management circle, and a family circle. And how do you manage these three dimensions carefully? And that's where when a father is speaking to son in a family business, it is very essential to understand whether a manager is speaking to a chairman or a son is speaking to the father. It's just change of hat. But it's very, very difficult to dynamically change the hat, and that leads to a lot of confusion. And in many family businesses, just because it has been started by the previous generation, how do they look at their next generation? Is it an entitlement or it's a responsibility? How would you like to come in and what is expected out of them? One special area what I have found working with many, many family businesses all over the world is they are very unique and special because each and every family business is driven with a purpose that separates them from other non-family businesses. The purpose will cover their family. Say, for example, they say that we want to create an employment opportunity for our generations. It's a purpose. We want to ensure that there is a continuity of whatever we are skilled in from generation to generation. So a purpose drives the family business, or we want to create an impact in the society. Their consciousness level is extremely high. So the way they want to approach a family business is very, very different from a non-family business. So that's a clear differentiator. As we go a little bit deeper, I would like to say I have come across three types of family businesses. The first one I say is operating family business where owners roll up their sleeves and they are the managers themselves. They are the CEOs. As the businesses mature, they move towards a strategic family business where they do not want to operate on a day-to-day basis. They look at more strategic involvement in the business, whether it is a parallel planning, operating from the board. So the business is run by a CEO, a professional. And as it matures further, many family businesses from generation to generation move into something I call it as owner investor model, where they play the role of an investor. If you look at many of the businesses in Europe or in America who are in fifth generation, sixth generation, they all have moved into a pure investor model where they don't even have any kind of involvement the day-to-day operation or involvement in the strategy. All they have is the shares and the benefits they receive from holding those shares, and they are the brand ambassadors of that family. So that, but in India, predominantly, I find that most of the family-run businesses are in the operating family business model.
The world right now, Dixit ji, is going through these difficult times because of the pandemic, and family business are no exception. In your view, how can family business handle such situations right now?
So that is very true. In this area, since the lockdown, since the breakout of pandemic, I have been involved with many, many family businesses and trying to understand as to how their coping mechanism has been working. So in this area, I came up with a concept called creating a family business war room. So you create a family business war room, which is going to handle the crisis. So let me explain what I meant by family business war room. It's an informal space, where families organize themselves very differently. The way they have been usually operating are being involved. For example, many family members who have not been usually involved in the business, they also jump into this foray and they try to figure it out in terms of how we create this special space where we are going to operate from a different mindset altogether, having a special orientation in terms of how are we going to pull ourselves out of this struggle, how are we going to reinvent ourselves. And it has been working. We have been able to form with few of the families I have been working with in terms of, so when I go a little bit more deeper in terms of, why should one create this war room?
Yeah.
Okay, business is going through a crisis, and unless you are very, very clear in terms of your purpose of the war room creation and how it is going to function, it may go all over the place. So potentially what I found, any type of crisis, forget today's crisis, what we are all facing, but generally any type of crisis hits the family business at three levels. The first one is continuity of the business gets threatened. So it shakes everybody. The second one is assault on family wealth. So the family wealth comes under severe pressure. And during this kind of a crisis, whatever the money the family would have accumulated over a period of time, they have to pump in back into family businesses to keep it alive, because it's not possible to just suddenly walk away, or there has been lots of commitment. So that's the second big reason which threatens family business. And the third one I find is that physical and mental well-being of the family members gets affected. So therefore, it's very essential that you create a strong team which is going to handle the crisis from standing from the front. What kind of a team? When I talk about this, you need to first figure out that who all are ready to be part of this team, because it's a 24/7 exercise. And it is essential to get a diverse team in place who are able to bring in a different, unique thought process from different parts of life. Second thing is that it's a great opportunity for the family members. Ask what you can do for the family business, not what it can do for you. It's an opportunity where you jump in and say, it's essential that I contribute something. And here I have seen in many families, people who are from other generations who are entitlement driven, they don't quite come forward. But it's not a question of nomination. And do you have in you to jump into it and do something about it? And this team is an extremely an empowered team from the family business three circle angle. And there are essentially two roles I see in this war room creation. One is in terms of a team coordinator, and the other one is a facilitator who is going to ensure that the agenda, what are the decisions we are going to make, and how to keep the mindset attuned to opportunity. And they all need to have a shared motivation to pull the family business out of trouble and ensure. There are lots of SMEs, family businesses who are caught in this trouble. If they do not think carefully, they will get wiped out. But I believe if you look at a non-family business versus a family business, because during crisis time, who stays close to you is your family members. They are the one who come close to you, stay with you. Many professionals may also leave you and go away. But family, there's no way to go. They will always there be with you.
Can you also please throw some light on, does these war room need guidelines? Because otherwise it's not binding everybody together.
That's right. So what happens is that, when the families decide that we are going to create a war room, the first essential, I have come up with 4 different dimensions of guidelines to be followed to run this war room. I think the first one I say is adopt an owner strategist mindset. So as I was talking earlier, there are 3 types of business models: owner manager driven, and owner strategist, and owner investor. So if I take an analogy of a ship, an owner manager is always living in the engine room, and owner investor is always in a pool deck, and the owner strategist is the one who is at the bridge. And while you are at the bridge, you have a bifocal mindset. That means you have an ability to look at a short-term challenge and also identify what is the long-term implication. So any of the decisions you are going to make, you will not just do keeping today's situation in mind or worrying about the future. You will not say, okay, I won't take this decision. And also it is essential and important to understand, even as even you are an owner manager in a normal routine life in your family business, you need to figure it out how you are going to transport your mind to think like an owner strategist, where it will be you are going to set a new thinking style, and you are going to sometime as a your family culture, your family business legacy allows you to do certain things, does not allow you to do certain things, but sitting there you need to have a strategic thinking in terms of how you can reorient the strategic thinking. See, that's the first one I would say. And the second one is, I call it as repurposing. As I spoke to you earlier, that every single family business I have come across, they are driven by a purpose. They ask themselves a question, why are we in business together? What do we want to achieve? And what is the business is for? And what are we going to do with the wealth, what we are going to create? What is our commitment to the society? What is our commitment to the generations who are part of our family, who are not even born today? So there is a lot of, every family business has a purpose. So it is essential to revisit what is our current purpose on which our family business have been running. We have been thinking on those lines. That's number one. Number two, they have to repurpose the business in terms of taking into consideration the crisis. It's the repurposing is not purely how do I survive, but keeping the family values, family business values in mind, and not too much of a departure from their own core purpose. They have to be aligned in terms of somehow we need to come back to our core purpose, even though for a short period of time, if we need to go through a slightly divergent path. One thing what I have found, when you are hit by a crisis, you need to have an abundance mindset than having a scarcity mindset. Generally, it's not necessarily in any family business context, but generally anyone, when you are hit by a crisis, mind starts to think negative, it becomes highly scarce in nature. But while you are repurposing, the abundance mindset helps very much, where we are able to look at the solution, not just look at a problem. And while we repurpose, we look at the economical, emotional, intellectual dangers which family business may be facing. And this repurpose should not just address the business needs, but also it should address the family needs also. So many a time people want to jump and take decisions in an uninclusive manner without involving all the family members who are working together. And a blame games opens out in terms of why you did not ask me, why you did not check with me. So it is extremely essential to have an inclusive approach while creating the repurpose of how we are. So one example of repurpose could be that we all have been living off this money for last 20 years in our family business. Now we may not be in a position to draw the dividends or draw the salary for next 3 years. And we are okay with it. And all of us are aligned in our thinking. And we say, the business comes first. Let's take care of all our employees who are working with us, all the team members who are working with us. Let's address all the stakeholders, and we will take care of ourselves in the last. So each one should be committed to the repurpose. There is a saying in family business that you don't inherit your family business from your forefathers. You borrow it from your grandchildren and great grandchildren. So when you have a concept of borrowing from your great grandchildren, you are a custodian. And it is extremely essential to behave in a very responsible manner if you are a custodian. And as a custodian, you need to be really, really careful and think, do we still want to be in business together? Because during the crisis, everybody wants to run away or fight, whatever each one wants to, survival instinct kicks in. If we do, what is our business is for? There has to be a clarity. Is it to support the family? It is supposed to just somehow survive through the crisis? Or is it primarily to fund our lifestyle? Our family has some other purpose they want to serve first. So a shift, this kind of question comes in. and many a time they go beyond a financial purpose during the crisis. Finance is the last thing, and they together, how can we reinvent a new business model which is going to save us through this situation? Third pillar of this entire war room, I say, is dig deep into your family values. And families who have invested enough time understanding their family values, their family culture, and who are aligned as a family business, they have a capacity to take any difficult decisions. They are ready to take risky propositions, and they are ready to do any uncomfortable trade-offs. Everything is possible if your values are aligned. But in many family businesses, they may not have invested enough time in the past. So I say, if first go back to the identifying what are your family values and agree and align. Some people say, there's a house is burning, house is on fire. Is this the time to go and talk about values? But surprisingly, people who understand the deeper meaning, if your values are aligned, your decisions run very, very fast. You are able to quickly agree. You are able to drop the decisions which are going to be harmful, and there's no ego between family members who are sitting on table together, because their purpose is aligned, their values are very, very deeply aligned. So that is the third pillar, and they have to keep on working at the dimension of the values. And the fourth dimension of the family war room is inclusive approach. How are you going to involve all the family stakeholders in the decision making? In terms of, sometime you may want to take this war room have to take their proposal to the family business council to get their approval. Just because they have been given a special power, they should not start making a random decision, basically to ensure that inclusivity is well established. In terms of, so tomorrow there's no blame game. And some decisions where it involves write-off, capital erosion, firing people, they have to, many family business during this crisis have downsized. Many family businesses, they have reduced their team's salary, they have reduced their salary, so many things they have done. But there's a full buy-in of the family. So tomorrow, nobody starts pointing finger in terms of why you did not check with me. I have been pardoned. They may not be an active working family business member, but it is a very prudent idea, because ultimately during crisis, as I shared with you, who stands with you is your family. In many family business entrepreneurs whose spouses actually, who are not actively in business, but they have their greatest skin in the business, and they're extremely wise. During their pillow talk, the entrepreneurs and family owners get so much of advice when they have a habit of sharing with an open mind, saying that, I'm going through. And I find family members who are not in business, they have a great advantage during this crisis time, because they can see something which, because they are out of the problem. So they are not part of the problem in an active manner. They have an outsider's view. Even though they are a family stakeholder, they are able to see in terms of how they bring in a different, unique perspective. Right. So what I found, I deeply encourage the family business CEOs, owners to actively engage with their spouses to get, initially many of them said, she doesn't understand business. She has never been part and parcel of any of the decision making. But that doesn't matter. What is most important is that, are you able to speak to somebody without any limitation, without any reservation, whatever is running in your heart, where you are ready to be vulnerable? And family is a space which offers you to be vulnerable in front of everybody. And more, I believe this crisis has brought in a great opportunity for family-run businesses to give attention to their family. because most of the time, even though they are family businesses, most of their attention is taken away by business. And they were all forced, locked down to stay at home and do all their meetings through online and Zoom, etc. It has forced them to be more inclusive. It has got its own pressures, but the idea here is they are all listening. Many of my clients, their wives who have nothing to do with business, they're actively sitting and listening what's happening in these meetings. They're asking their husbands who are chairman of the corporations, why are you deciding like that? Why are you saying like this? It has brought in the whole business at home. Right. And I believe that this is bringing the family together. This is also strengthening the business roots in a very big way. I think that's the plus side of this pandemic. And family members are always there, whatever it is, we will fight it out together. It doesn't matter. And we just want you to be not stressed. And the kind of support extended family members are offering is so amazing. So these are all the 4 dimensions, I would say. One is, I will just for recall purpose, I will say one is the adaptation of owner strategist mindset. Second is repurpose from your whatever has been your original purpose. Third is revisit your values, family business values, whatever they are. And fourth one is be extremely inclusive. If you have these 4 dimensions, it is very much possible to fight any of the crisis. After all, I believe, family is the oldest institution in the world. And when a family moves together, pulling in one direction and speaking with one voice, it is proven itself to be resistant to practically anything. They can fight anything out. So this is what I feel is that this family war room can achieve to deal with the kind of crisis family businesses are going through.
Some great insights there, Dixit ji. Triggers the blind spots also of the entrepreneurs and how they can look at things differently. Thank you so much for sharing that. We have a few questions come in, and at this point, I'll encourage the attendees to please start posting their questions for Dixit ji, and we'll take as much as we can given the time. First question to you, Dixit ji, is given your experience of advising so many family businesses, what are the top 2 or 3 challenges or conflict situations faced, and how can one overcome them?
If you ask me, of course, family businesses have many, many challenges, but the top ones I would say is, first one I would use is succession. When you are going to pass on the baton from one generation to another generation, and it is a very, very difficult situation which family goes through if they have multiple successors, especially. And many family businesses don't address this in a proper way. When an event actually occurs at that time, the struggle happens. I call this as an acid test in family business. And many a time it breaks the family businesses badly. So the solution for this is, how do you design the succession process long before the event can occur? In India, we have a very unique disposition in family business succession. We don't have a concept of retirement. Unlike the West, there are very few family business in India where they have a stipulated practice. One such group is Murugappa Group. They have a stipulated practice at the age of 60, you will step down from role and you will move out of any active role in the family business and you will be part of the family council. And they have been strictly practicing for many generations. But apart from that group, there are many groups who have been trying to attempt this concept. But it is essential to pinpoint here that most of these family business entrepreneurs, they don't have any other parallel occupation. So they don't know anything apart from business. So people who don't know anything apart from business, if they retire, what will happen to their mental state? And more importantly, what will happen to the mental state of their spouses? Because they don't know what to do with the husband all full time sitting at home. And they do not want them to retire. So succession is one big piece. If it is handled properly as a process, and where you come up with contingent scenario planning, where you are able to say, in few family businesses we work with, we do not want the senior generation to decide who should be the next successor. We have given this empowerment to the next generation, say, between all of you, use it together and decide who should be running the business, taking the baton from here. And whether it is going to be a single leadership model or whether it is going to be a joint leadership model, there are many concepts are emerging. Some family businesses believe that, only there can be one leader. But as it passes from generation to generation, that need not be the case. You can have multiple leaders running the business successfully if there is a concept of equality between the next generation members. So that is one big piece I would call it as succession. And of course, the senior generation have to prepare their mind to step down. It is very difficult to let go of the power, because the kind of name, fame and identity what they receive from saying that, I'm so and so, and they don't want to say I have retired. The second big challenge, I would say, is intergenerational alignment. The way the senior generation thinks and the way the next generation thinks. Most of the next generation, they are differently educated. They are being sent abroad, go there, do their undergrads and their masters. They are more digitally savvy, and many family businesses, the owners still are thinking in a brick and mortar way, and they do not want to go out of their comfort zone. Many a time I see an interplay of lack of alignment between the two generations. The style of the first generation, the way they want to run the business, many of them, they want to have a full control, and they want to ensure that any and every single item is cleared by them. Whereas the next generation says, why can't we professionalize? Why can't we take a more strategic position instead of dirtying our hand, etc.? So they are not able to see each other where they are coming from. So that is a big piece of, and the only solution for this is ensuring there is an active facilitation between these two generations, because they may not understand who is coming from where. I would call it is essential to marry the experience of the senior generation and the enthusiasm and energy of the young generation. It's not each one is right or wrong. And the third one is the biggest challenge is the governance, lack of established proper governance system in terms of inclusivity with family members, lack of having agreed policies between family members, and so as a family business, matured family businesses agree, this is how we are going to govern our business, this is how we are going to govern our families. So that brings in a third unique challenge. But there has been more and more awareness. People are organizing themselves to learn how best we can govern our family business. I would say these are all the three top challenges.
There's some questions coming, Dixit ji. I'll direct them to you. When you say include everyone in the discussions and decision making, the objective of each family member could be different. A younger generation may have horizon of their own retirement. The older generation may look at providing for a charity, for example. How do you reconcile this? Should not only one person be making all the decision?
So let me answer this at two levels. Number one, during a crisis period, is a different answer, and during a non-crisis period where business is as usual. I feel during the crisis period, the command and control should come to the center, and there should be one lieutenant who is driving all the decisions and popularizing the decisions with everyone. And what is most important is this person, whoever is doing this job, they should have a servant leadership orientation instead of an autocratic and authoritative orientation, and where they should learn how I can influence everybody. And when it comes to business as usual, I would say during that kind of a situation, how do you bring in inclusivity? You need to divide all the stakeholders into different baskets. People who are pure family, who have no role to play in business, but they are very much dependent on the business to support them. So we must be very cognizant of it. And number two, we also should be cognizant of there are certain owners, family owners, they don't play any active role in management, and they are dependent on the dividends for their lifestyle, for them to run. And while family members who are actively playing role in business, they are driven by growth, they are driven by reinvestment, they want to put in all the money back into the business. We need to figure it out that's where the governance comes into picture. It's all pre-agreed. It's all pre-agreed in terms of how are we going to decide. In terms of, we create a concept called reserved items. These are all a dozen items which needs to go to the ownership council for decision making. These are all the dozen items which comes to the family for decision making. Even though the CEO is a family member, a senior family member who is driving the decision, this is embedded in the governance. And these are all the operational or strategic items where there is no interface of ownership and family, you can decide on your own. So this kind of a classification of reserved item helps to ensure the inclusivity is with boundary. At the same time, you are able to get everybody's buy-in so that tomorrow they are not saying that why you did not check with me. If this is not within your purview, why should I check with you? So they agree also, they understand. If suppose in some families, one example, they say, if you want to hire anybody above this band of an employee, you should come to the family council for hiring approval. If it's part of the reserved item, you need to go there. But in other families, they say, you know what, we want you to come only while you hire a CEO. We want to have a say in that. Rest of the people, you take care. I really don't want to be involved. So the family business board's involvement is defined differently. Family council is defined differently. Ownership council is defined differently.
Very interesting. Inclusivity with boundary, that's very critical. Another question from Bandish Mehta is how to create harmony in thought between all the family members involved in the business.
Very, very difficult one. Because each one, we must understand family is while the family sounds a very safe place, we must understand family can be a very, very unsafe place many times. And because each person has a different agenda, each person has a different aspiration, each person has a different motive. Now, if you want to create harmony, you must work on 3 dimensions. Number 1, I would say, is that what you have to address their personal aspiration. What do they want to do? Number 2, you also need to agree with them in terms of, if each one's aspiration is met through your family business universe, then there's a overall harmony. And the aspiration, there's a family aspiration, there's a business aspiration. So that is one dimension. The second dimension, I would say, is that having a clarity in terms of how are we going to engage with each other in terms of while we are going to make any decision. So again, I will go back to the word inclusivity is a crucial prerequisite for ensuring harmony. The moment you are not inclusive in nature, harmony is under big threat. And the third one, I would say, is that practicing servant leadership in family and having a high degree of emotional intelligence. And you also need to know, while you are talking about harmony creation, where to control, where to let go, where to empower, where to keep control in your hand, and an ability to influence other family members, sit and talk to them and not fall into quarrel. So I talk about a concept of CEO in family. That means Chief Emotional Officer. How you have a CEO for a business, Chief Executive Officer, you need a CEO. That CEO may not be necessarily the head of the family or the oldest in the family. Anybody can be the CEO. In many families, I find the matriarch is the CEO. So a CEO plays a very, very big role in ensuring there's a harmony around. And the business CEO has to co-work with the family CEO to ensure the harmony is established across the board.
Another question, the family members, especially the second and third generation, may not be as passionate as the founder of the business. In such a scenario, how can one create a high performance culture for business success?
So that is very true. Many a time I ask a question, if you are not passionate about what is your family business, why do you want to work in this family business? That's the first question. Okay. If you are not passionate about it, why can't you go and start something on your own or go and work somewhere outside? But in some situations, I have found two kinds of experience. Number one is the responsibility drives them to be part of the family business. I'm not very passionate about it, but I feel highly responsible towards all the stakeholders. I feel responsible because my father has started it, and we have a family commitment. So that is one dimension. The second dimension, so responsibility is one dimension which gets them going. And the second dimension, I feel people from next generation, because they did not get an opportunity outside, they get into family business, and sometimes they may also complain in the next generation saying that, it's not aligned, I'm not happy, etc., etc. But what is the solution for it? That it is a purpose alignment of what is the family's purpose and what is the next generation's individual purpose. What do you want to achieve in your life? And whether the family business as a platform can help you to achieve that. That's one. Second thing I would say is that ensure their aspiration alignment. If do they want to be CEO, or do they want to play a part role only as a board member, a strategic role play, or they would like to be a brand ambassador, or they do not want to take. So aspiration has to be extremely aligned to ensure the motivation comes back. And the third one is a continuous expectation management between the senior and the incumbent new entrant in terms of what do I expect from you and what does the next generation expect from this family business platform and from the senior generation. If we are continuously dealing with these three subjects, it is possible to achieve this motivation and a high performance culture, even though they may not be attached to the business.
Okay. I have, I think, time for maybe one or two questions. So let's take this. Is it advisable to create a family governance framework? We've talked so much about the governance. Advisable to create a governance framework, family.
Yeah, so yes, absolutely. I would say every single family business must create a governance for themselves. So it is essential to understand what is the meaning of governance. Number one, as I shared with you, the family is governed by three circles. There's an ownership circle, there's a family circle, and there is a management circle, business circle. So the idea of governance is that how will they interact with each other? So how do you create separate forums? So in different families, we create a ownership council, there's a family business council, and there's a family council.
Right.
Who will get involved where? Write down the policies in terms of, creating a governance framework, or in other words, it's called constitution or a family business charter. It's an insurance for the family business. When you are hit by the problem, all you need to do is go back to the pre-agreed charter that this is what we have collectively agreed. And everybody shuts up because they have been part and parcel of that decision making. And they take it up saying that, yes, this is what we have agreed. I constantly advise families never take any ad hoc decisions during crisis. Imagine a situation, what could come and hit your family business, and do a scenario planning and come up with policies, procedures, processes as to how are you going to address that situation. That way, family always stays together.
Yeah.
Cohesion is always there. That's what the governance helps. It's an insurance mechanism. So one can decide whether do they need a health insurance or a life insurance or not. Why do we take that? And it's equivalent for the business, family business.
So I think we are up on the time. I would like some closing statements from you, Dixitji.
I would say that family business is a great karmic platform for every single person who is able to work in their family business. It's a great opportunity because family business, I believe, is the backbone of any country. and it is responsibility of every single family business member to ensure as part of country building, because if they break, it is an erosion of wealth for everybody. It harms everybody. And it's very essential to understand what is the platform the fathers and forefathers have created for ourselves, and do not look at as an entitlement space just because you happen to be born and brought up in that family, but look at how I can serve this family business, how it can be an opportunity for me to give back to society or create a great wealth for the country in whichever way, create a larger purpose where you feel proud of your family business legacy. Once upon a time, people were very shy to say, I have a family business, because it was not well understood. Today, family business is a great movement of pride all over the world. You are being looked upon because you are a trusted house. I can trust the family's words. Today, there can be one professional, tomorrow that person can go away, but the family member is always there to stay. So it increases the shareholders' trust.
Right.
That's what I would say.
Right. Thank you so much, Dixit ji, for that. I think it was a great session with you. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much. I hope the audience could benefit out of some of the thoughts I was sharing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.